Welcome to the Bike Talk with Dave podcast. Thanks for tuning in. I'm your host, Dave Mabel, and I love riding my bike. And I'm guessing you do too. Otherwise, why would you be tuning in, right? So I love riding, and I especially love riding around town. And it is always cool to round a corner or cruise up a trail, and boom, there's a big, giant mural all over the side of a building. And they're all different, and they're interesting and colorful. And you can never go wrong snapping a selfie with you and your bike in front of one. Or for the gram, just your bike leaning against stuff. Murals can give you a sense of place, and whether you catch a quick glimpse as you ride by in some town you're visiting, or if it's part of your daily commute, each one tells a story. And it's cool because it's actually your story. And that story can change every time you ride by or stop and enjoy it. And sometimes it can actually really change, like when a familiar work is repainted and a whole new story comes into being. This was a case recently as a mural that we'd been cruising by for a few years suddenly changed. I saw that a friend of mine, Jake Kuperman, was the artist doing a new mural over the old one. And it occurred to me that it'd be super fun to talk to him about his cycling-inspired creations. He was kind enough to say yes, and we met one afternoon next to the bike trail and talked about his new work of art.
One cool thing about this being a 4 p.m. sit down instead of a 2 p.m. is that the wall's in the shade until just about now. So from now until 40 minutes or an hour, like it just gets lit up from
I bet as
direction.
the sun goes down, it's like starts glowing.
So it's fun that we're 2 hours, but it's perfect. So now it's lit up differently now than it was 10 minutes ago, and then same from 20 minutes from now. So that could be an interesting thing to check back in.
Yeah, and you see the texture of the brick itself, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah.
It
not makes just, it dynamic and different.
You're not just painting on a flat canvas, which is cool.
Yeah.
And this light coming like so much from the side really highlights that fact.
And it's definitely the best well-lit project. I don't know if you're doing some of your painting projects and you're like, the lighting's making this. I know what color this paint is, and it's like your orange fluorescent lighting is. So this is like one of the best well-lit projects I've had that's not artificial, and the before and after photo, like I actually have control of the after versus like being in the school and it's fluorescent lights and you can't get the camera to focus on what you paint. So this might be the best well-lit project I've worked on as far as being like, nope, that color looks the same way, that especially when you're matching colors. And for me, I'm matching colors from like the iPad to the wall.
Oh boy.
So that's the transition. And that's a challenge just because the eyedropper on the iPad could be any shade of teal. And so I think it's taken a while to finally align which teal I use on the iPad, and then I'm able to connect it to, I'm not using brushes, but like the spray cans. So the spray cans are almost like markers. You've got your blue marker, your yellow marker, so that's...
I can tell that looking at that now. I like before I'm like, well, that's all brushwork, but yeah, that is spray can, isn't it?
And,
very cool.
Yeah.
Well, I want to dive more into this piece and then some of your other stuff too. But we should probably introduce you. Jake Kuperman. I know it's Kuperman because I can read your name on the wall there. And is that the year you were born, 2023?
2023. It's not the year I was born. It is.
You do seem older than that.
Yeah. It's fun to timestamp murals to see, oh, that one's been there, so. But it is fun to kind of go around town and see like dates on artwork.
On stuff you've done? Or anything. Anything, yeah, for sure.
And then there's like artists that date their tape measure the day they got it. They put the date on it. and that's an interesting.
Their tape measure?
Yeah, and it's like the born on date. So you're like, oh, I've had this thing for 10 years. You know, like you have moments like that.
Oh, that's cool.
That's
cool.
With your gear.
I don't think I can keep a tape measure long enough to care. I'm always like, where's my tape measure? I don't know. It's gone. There's got to be another one around here somewhere. Then I find an old one. Yeah.
3 or 4. Yeah.
Yes, it is good to have 3 or 4. So Jake, let's explain who you are. I know you. I don't know you as. I know you from cycling. You went to. Forgive me. I should let you do the intro since you know your history, but. University of Iowa.
I went to Iowa, yeah.
And you had a great group of guys riding with. I remember AJ.
Yes. AJ Turner.
AJ Turner. Yeah. Mike's kid. What was his name?
Andy Bunce.
Andy. Yes, yeah. Andy Bunce. Mike Bunce's kid. Mike Bunce still ride on Saturday mornings and
getting faster.
Wednesday. He's hanging in there. He's a good dude. He's a great dude. And in fact, I met Andy's mom recently too at one of our post-ride breakfasts. So Andy, but you guys rode. I remember Cliff Bar being on your jerseys. You guys had Cliff Bar jerseys. I never really understood the relationship there, but you guys were fast.
That's a fun story. Like my brother found a Cliff Bar job in Chicago on Craigslist 15, 20 years ago.
Oh, that's how we did things then, wasn't it?
Yeah, and then. Through my brother, I met his boss, and then I just applied kind of for their internship, and then that led to writing a cover letter for a sponsorship, and I moved to Chicago, and I worked for their field marketing team, so we would go to Minneapolis and work the marathon or the triathlon or...
Hand out food?
Hand out samples, yeah.
Yeah. We did always... Honestly, on Ragbri, like there were times you saved our life.
Carrying a trailer with like mini Cliff Bars and shot blocks in it.
Yep, yeah. Big time. You got me hooked on shot blocks, that's for sure. But yeah, there were times we'd be starving to death and there'd be no one around, like we're not near a town or a place to stop. And those were the days when we were hauling our kids along. So it was like a lot of work and we were going slow and we had 5 hungry mouths to feed. And then we'd see you guys, and we're like, oh, sweet, Cliff Bars. Like, you definitely fed us on many Ragbris.
It was an interesting, easy, fun, supportive thing to do, yeah. Cool.
Yeah, well, it was great ambassadorness for Cliff Bar, that's for sure. I mean, you guys were... Yeah, they did nail it, and you guys were heroes, so that's not a bad position for people to be in.
I learned so much from that. Like, some of wanting to do artwork is how nice they were with their marketing and their outcome, you know, so it's like interesting to take odd jobs here and there and then see them, you take the best parts of them, and the way they like knew how to connect with people by sharing and giving stuff away. It was like such a valuable impact moment for, especially you're in the middle of a bike ride and it's unexpected and needed, and it's in the context of being on the go, so yeah.
And you see this starving family of 5 rolling along
at a much slower pace than they thought.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. There were times we did need help home, but and you guys were a good wheel too. Like any one of you, were always a good wheel to jump on. Now, I still see you on the morning rides. I don't think you're racing as much. Do you still shave your legs?
I don't. No? That's a good question. I don't.
I told Brendan Quirk this, the CEO of USA Cycling, like the only reason I get my license is so that I can justify shaving my legs. I just can't stand having hairy legs. You are playing water polo now, and I would think that shaved legs would be a benefit in the pool, but...
Yeah, it's a maintenance thing. It's like...
It is a maintenance thing.
I think and you do have to get outside of so...
But you are riding. You're riding...
I definitely ride to get from A to B and to commute, and I love, and I go on a lot slower rides with my dog. We'll go through the trails behind the art center or something. And,
Cool.
yeah.
Mountain biking?
Yeah, just on a cross bike, and it's fun to kind of roll at a trot for her, and it wears her out the way that like a 4-hour bike ride would wear us out, and there's just this kind of like overlap of that was a good ride, huh? Like, and so
That's cool. Now, we've been hanging here, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes chatting, and I think she's on her 3rd or 4th stick. Is that a distraction for her in the woods, or is she just like in go mode?
it's kind of like a toy, like it's it could be a ball or a toy, or so
yeah, well, she's got her stick right now sitting on her legs. She's a good dog.
she's pretty nice.
Yep. So we're right on the bike trail, just, I'd say, outside of downtown Des Moines. If you live in a suburb, you might call where we are downtown, like going downtown. But we're sitting on a bike trail, and there's a beautiful work of art on the building next to us, and has your name on there in 2023. And I feel like you just finished this. What are we looking at here?
So we're looking at a bike-themed mural. I worked on it for a week. It's depicting a bird, a traffic signal, a cyclist, a female cyclist, and a light bulb, I guess, would be the kind of main points of it. But it's something that we were talking about storytelling, so I like to create stuff that whatever story it is for me, it's open enough that it could mean anything to anyone, and I like to create stuff. So this mural, I like to create something that people can look at and view differently each time. So each visit could be a different story. They notice a different part or something. So
whose building is it on?
this building, the depot, is called the depot. It's kind of a shared workspace. So there's offices. The Top Bun food truck is kind of operated out of this building also, with Dave Berry. That's his food truck, and Dave's who I've been working with, and this is just an opportunity to make this building a little more colorful. It's located right next to Southwest 9th and this bridge where lots of graffiti happens, and so it is interesting that the interaction of murals can kind of be a deterrent for graffiti in a way. So it also makes it less of a target if somebody's like hosting an outdoor gallery of sorts, you know. So
That's kind of interesting. So one motivation or one reason that somebody might have a big mural like this put on their wall is to deter graffiti.
that's just my interpretation, but it comes from it being, if we could see through this building, there's a corner back here that is part of this building, but it gets tagged. And so then the building would then go through the steps of like calling the city to get the city to paint it back to concrete. And so maybe just my theory would be that like people would not tag it as much if they see that like, oh, they do like artwork and street art, and maybe I'll not write it on this wall or this dumpster or this part of this person's building. So, but no, I don't think that's why we created it. I do think that that's just an interesting part of being located next to this bridge where a lot of graffiti happens. But
A lot of graffiti does happen, and it's kind of interesting that, and honestly, I have watched you on Instagram put this up, and I've ridden by here a few times over the course of the past week, and you had to tell me that it's all rattle can,
all
spray painted.
yeah.
That's pretty interesting. Tell me about the process. I guess I'm first curious about how you come up with the what and then the how. So let's start with the what. You've got like you said, the traffic light, the cardinal
bird,
a light bulb, is that Dee riding her bike?
It looks like Dee.
I mean, it kind of does, and she's even on a
zippy.
What's the correct
It's
word?
Almost a crux or something.
Burgundy.
Oh yeah.
The burgundy's not the right word. She has a specific word to describe the color of her bike. It cannot be maroon.
Crimson.
Crimson, maybe?
You know, it's like
crimson?
one of those like, it's not red, but you know crimson means red.
Yes,
So,
yeah. Pretty dark, pretty deep dark red. So it was Dee your inspiration in this?
Do you know the cyclist Sarah Sturm?
Yeah, for sure.
She, I think, is inspirational and quite an athlete, like an incredible athlete, and that's just from Instagram for me. I haven't been at a race that she's at, but yeah, just from Instagram, any cycling inspiration usually is just checking in with her, and it's like, oh, she did a 160-mile gravel ride in Kansas, and she's really honest and interesting in her post to say like why she got 7th and what top 3, how that top 3 mentality became 7th mid-race, and so I just think she's a interesting, like, what if we had Instagram back when Lance was, that's a little bit when I was watching cycling as much as, it just, yeah. So it's so interesting to watch cycling from someone's Instagram where it's like, I had it, but I lost a tire halfway through, and 7th was, so yeah, she's the inspiration behind it, and I like her style in cycling too. She wears colorful, designed kits, and so that was the inspiration. So I knew like the what would be thinking about this location. I was thinking about the bike path, and it's part of the bike path that you're in flow, you're not making a stop in a turn or anything, and so that's the what is that, okay, so I want a piece that people are interacting with as they're passing by, and then I want to make something that's maybe a bike theme. And so that was kind of the what is, okay, I want maybe a cycling themed mural, and then I start exploring what would a bird look like? Where would a bird fit in?
Why a bird? Where'd that come from?
I like the idea of making work about the food system, mental health, or leaving any place better than you found it. So that's sort of like nature, and I think the bird is kind of that nature checkpoint, I guess, like it's and then the story, just from placing those two pieces down, then I'll start to say like I'll create a story for myself, and it's like, is the cyclist interacting with nature? Is it about observing nature on your bike? Is it about, so once I start being able to come up with a story idea or two, then I can kind of move on, because I think that it's strong enough to be more than just one story. Or like if I can look at something and list a few things that could be the story that's being told, then I can kind of move on to like, okay, so is it a cardinal or is it a blue jay? Well, a blue jay might disappear with the blue of that, so that'll steer me back in so I'll spend some time, like I spent like a week on this, just drawing on my iPad, which is the first step, and kind of like creating little stories like that and answering questions like, well, then what color would that bird have to be? And just kind of like cooking. It's like, well, you can't have too much salt, can't be your only ingredient if you want to achieve, Italian or Cajun or so yeah. Then the first step kind of becomes drawn on the iPad, and the iPad can get it all the way kind of to this finished mock-up. And then in my studio would be kind of the next step of gathering the spray paint that matches the iPad colors. And then
Do you just go to Menards and Lowe's and Home Depot and clean them out?
There's that type of spray paint. There's this other type of spray paint that's for art, and that the pressure is different, the nozzles are different. You can interchange a small nozzle with a large nozzle.
Huh,
so
okay.
you can get detailed with one, and then you can fill a large space with another.
Are they refill? Like, can you use them again, or?
There's a way to do that, but I use them as a one-time.
Yeah.
And then what to do with like all that waste is you can paint on top of the cans, and you could sell a new piece of art, I guess. But
Have you listened to my Squid Bikes one?
not yet.
He talks about if he has a design in mind for a bike, he'll paint it on an old spray can and send that to the customer. Say, do you like this design?
Because of the three-dimensionality, it's like a sample round thing that he can...
It's
That's awesome.
Yeah. And I was like, dude, you should sell those cans. Like that would be genius. I would buy a spray can painted by you.
Are they kind of like that Klein, like faded?
Yeah, or whatever. They're
It
whatever
could be
you want.
anything.
Yeah, they're all kinds. They're whatever his
I love
imagination.
the idea of it being like a sample top tube or something.
Yeah, yeah, it's exactly what it is. So I like that. I like that idea. So where can people buy your spray cans?
My website is my name, JakeKuperman.com, and so I have a small web store of just my merchandise, but
Are cans on it?
they could be. They're not at the moment.
We're making a market here for used
they will
spray
be.
cans for sure. For sure.
They will be.
Yeah.
And I'll spend a week drawing, and I'll maybe the inspiration had a colorful jersey, but I could see something like I tuck the Des Moines flag into her sleeve, and then that just becomes kind of fun to create little like the light bulb, the bird, the flag, like just things that you look at it and you see over time or see differently and stuff each time you look at it. So
It's not, as I look at it, it doesn't, it's not just a scene.
I like the idea of that motion and it's moving. Yeah.
Yeah, they're all kind of separate parts but together, and it's not like, well, there's a stoplight in there, so she must be coming up to a stoplight on a road. It's like, no, she's riding her bike, and then over here is a picture of a stoplight, and then up over there there's a light bulb. Well, a stoplight is not going to be sitting below a light bulb. So they're related, but they're not. It's not like you're just painting a scene.
A landscape.
Yeah, yep.
So then the abstract becomes kind of fun to be like, that is a rule, this silly rule of civil engineering that, that you can kind of bend or break the rules about. So,
Well, I mean,
like,
you've got spray cans. You can put them wherever you want, right?
Yes.
Tell me how you got there and what led to murals. Like, my mom painted, and she painted a lot of canvas. She painted a lot of watercolors. Her journey led her to Driftwood Santas, and that ended up being her thing.
Does she live on a lake? Does she live near a river? Like,
She enjoyed
my
boating.
Favorite,
Yeah.
That's my favorite thing about the art festival is you'll see a tent and it'll say Nancy from Lake Winnetonka, and you're like, that's probably why all your mosaic is river rock. Like, you're probably going down to the lake and collecting and going to your... So it's fun to know where people are from, and like sometimes it connects the dot of why they're using driftwood or river rock or something that's in their backyard or on their daily walk. But
Yeah. I wouldn't say everybody goes from canvas to the side of a building, though.
No, I saw someone painting 6 or 7 years ago, and it was as if somebody was spray painting the way that I drew on paper, and just that aha moment of like, I've seen these murals before, but I've never seen anyone making one, and that's is that spray paint? And just that whole having to see it. And then I think from, say if that was 6 years ago, I think I've been doing what I'm doing now for 4 years. So it took 2 years of, I treated that like that person was a business model, and then it took kind of 2 years to say, okay, well, they have a website. Oh, they paint on walls. Where does that sketch come from? It comes from an iPad. Like, just kind of working backwards, and sort of taught myself that, I had such a strong interaction when I met this artist and saw him that it felt like having explored like what would it be like to be cooking for a living or doing sales for a living. It felt very just like on the nose of that's just how I draw, and like, oh, you can do that on a wall. Like, it seemed like things connected. So it took a few years to get to that point, but I still look as that artist as a mentor, and like just couldn't implore people enough to, like, if they like cycling or painting or something, just to find like somebody's workout regimen that you can model off of, or
Like Sarah Sturm.
Or maybe it was like Scratch Labs, and it's like you're trying to learn what to eat on a ride. So yeah, just using what's out there as a model to be a physical model, or it's kind of like a business guiding model. So
What was your first transition from canvas to side of a building? What was your first mural?
So I repainted over. This was probably my first mural back in 2019. Was on this building also. So I painted that white, and what prompted that is where
was that hard to do?
To cover it. No,
it
was
wasn't?
Exciting now because I knew what. Well, and also like it's nice to have painted the same location a few years ago, starting and then having that lift. So I had a rental, and I wasn't working on ladders this time, and so just that alone was. I could take my time instead of like, oh man, I'm really feeling this lean on this ladder. I don't trust it. Like, I should probably get down and move it. Like those little moments you have on ladders. So
yes, I can relate to those.
So this was different and fun, and a lot of like tools and things tricks I've collected, and just they were able to all kind of come out and work together. And so it is a little bit like cycling. Like instead of taking a corner, it's like trying to line up the spray paint for this shot. That's kind of so it is kind of like going to the bike race, or I tap into that same kind of focus, and you try to like envision how the race is going to go. So there is kind of like a shot, and you're spraying continuously and moving, so you don't get it concentrated too much in one spot. So
no runs, no drips, no errors.
Yeah, so you can control it. That's a great T-shirt.
Right.
Work in progress, no drips. No.
Knock on wood, anyway, right? Yeah, it's kind of funny that I didn't realize you had painted the one that used to be there. And I'm going to put this on Instagram if she'll let me. But Dee started a new job 3 years ago, and they needed some life shots of her. So she and I went out on a bike, and she rode by this thing 15 times, and I got shots of her at every angle going by that.
It was the best
old
professional
mural
shot for her. And
oh, absolutely.
Awesome.
She used that, and then there's the wall of exile that says Des Moines on it.
Yes.
What else have you done around town?
Other murals I painted around town, near the Roosevelt Shopping Center. I led it's a black and white octopus.
Yeah.
And that was an Art Week project. And so I worked with 87 Central, the t-shirt shop that's in that building, and it was their design. And then I got to work with their employees and kind of have like a demo of how spray paint works, and then we all collectively did the whole kind of process where you transfer it, and and then once it's transferred, you kind of clean it up a little bit. So, other murals I have around town would be one near I've got a mural near Drake, and that was for Art Week also that I painted, and so Art Week's kind of the week before the art festival. Art Week is supposed to be local artists before the art festival brings in kind of this national and international art festival, and so for Art Week I painted a dog-themed mural in Drake that's a bit more abstract and colorful, and I really like that mural. Sometimes I paint just little things on the bike path, just for fun. So,
do you see that like on the gram, like people post and like, oh, hey, I painted that?
Occasionally, yeah.
That's
like,
kind of fun, isn't it?
Occasionally, yeah, it is fun. It is fun, and it's opposed to being on someone's wall inside that nobody sees, right? So,
right. It's kind of the opposite of that.
I love that, yeah.
Yeah. But you do sell stuff on canvas. Like, this is such a different scale from an iPad or even a 20 by 30 that you hang on the wall. Are there challenges going from the size of an iPad to a brick wall, side of a building?
I can show you this. We can talk about this photo that I'll show you. There are challenges. There's this method called the doodle grid. And so the doodle grid, this photo we're looking at is the brick wall with random numbers, letters, shapes.
Did you paint all that stuff on it?
Yeah.
Huh.
And so
that's this wall right here, isn't it?
It is. And it's been painted white, and then on top of that white layer, the next layer is just random shapes, letters, numbers, a bug.
Is that the funnest thing on earth to do?
It's awesome. It's so fun and random, and you're just doing it just to do it, just to get it done. It doesn't mean anything, but then when you overlay the image, you can say, oh, her hat goes from that squiggle to that 7. So you're creating this grid, this transfer, this topographic.
It's a map.
Waypoint, yeah.
Huh.
And then the fun, yeah. So there are challenges, but that system is so wildly. So imagine if there were a building. We're standing across from it, but like if there were a building closer, you can't get that shot because. Right. So there's always challenges, but this one happened to just line up the best that it could, and so essentially it's like a projector, but it's a digital projector. You don't have to wait till nighttime. That street light would be too light at night, or that street light would be too bright at night for a projector,
for that to
probably,
work. Yeah.
For a projector. And so it's this kind of like tool that Photoshop lets you overlay the image and the random markings that you make, and then it creates kind of a roadmap.
Huh. I'm going to ask you on the air, and if you say no, then I'll delete this. But can you share those? Can I share those on the Instagram?
Definitely.
Because that's a really cool piece of this story is how you transfer it
transfers, from.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's super cool, and it's cool because it's not just a graph. I've done some exterior painting where I had to make some swoops and swirls, very specific for a brand, and boy, it was all graphed out. Like I measured, it was all graphed
to the
out.
Nanometer?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm biased, but I think it looks good.
Yes.
I think it turned out great.
Ask how it went. I was going to ask how it went, but I was also, at the same time, my brain wanted to talk to you. For painting, I don't love numbers and math, so the grid is painful for me because it's slowing down and taping, and
it's exactly what it is. It's very tedious. You have to be very meticulous, and it is very tedious.
So that's good of you. Good on you to do that grid, and it's almost a practice of patience on your end, or something. Just to, Not every project requires that. So.
Yeah, I'm sure it was a lot more fun to do you call it doodle grid?
And I think in that same application you could do it and it would work great, and then you would cut back and cover up.
Right.
And it definitely works very well if you have the matching paint to cut back, and that's frustrating sometimes, like just not having the touch-up paint when you in the profession.
Yeah. Yep. Might be a little easier in my world because I just go buy cans of like this color, and then I have a whole can, as opposed to trying to find the right spray can, and if that spray can's gone.
And the spray cans have silly names too, like Aramis green, blood red, fever red, Madrid red. There's 7 different hot reds that are one shade from each other, which is what on the bike creates kind of the dark to the. But it's cool because the can can be one shade from itself, one shade red lighter, and it together with the 2-3 other reds creates this kind of cool lit effect. So.
And 3D effect. I mean, it gives it depth, for sure.
Yeah.
That's 100% Dee's new bike. You know that, right?
Like
every time I look at that, I'm like, that is freaking Dee's bike right there, which I love. We're going to have to redo her shoot with this new mural.
Things, yeah, time to update all the things.
Put a stocking cap on her, and her white 515 kit, which has
for a holiday photo.
Whatever. To be on my phone.
Just this year's New Year's.
Yeah, right. I don't think that would fly, but we can try that. So how do people find you? How do you end up with a job?
It's a lot of cold calling and word of mouth and.
Cold calling, are you just you see a blank surface and you're like, I have a really great idea for the side of your wall.
I see a lot of blank walls, yeah, I do, and then they happen to be standing out on this loading dock and I asked.
This was cold calling. You didn't know these people?
No. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. They were standing outside in 2019 even. So, but I was like, "Do you know who owns this building?" And it happened to be the right people to ask that. So it's cold calling, and I've done cold calling of many products, and I'd much rather take 17 no's in this world than. So it is, yeah. It's a lot of asking and a lot of no's, and what's cool about the iPad is that you can mock it up and get it to a point where somebody can go, "Oh, I can see that." Oh, that's a huge challenge. Not everyone can see it and imagine, so it's nice to have the iPad lets you kind of mock it up, and you can send a photo and kind of go back and forth and edit it.
So I also got to ask you, and this is coming painter to painter, how about weather?
How long does it last, or painting in extreme weather? Or?
Painting in extreme weather. I've painted enough exteriors to know that I'd rather paint interior.
How do you plan your summers?
I paint indoors.
Yeah, exactly.
I do one exterior a year. And it's for a friend,
No.
What if you got what if you got a call from Austin, Texas, and they are like, dude, we will put you up. We want you down here for 3 weeks, and it's 105 degrees.
You just made me think of, that heat though. But I think you just start. It's so comparable to Ragbri, right? You just start at 7 instead of noon. But I do like to keep kind of regular business hours. But I think, in that situation, a sun hat, a umbrella, starting early.
5 gallons of water.
Also painting at night too, because what if it's an urban setting and it's well lit and it's 30 degrees cooler at night? So it is interesting. Each project has its problem solving.
Have you been rained on in the middle of a day and you're like, oh crap, I just got to get this part done?
It is doable to hurry and wrap up something like that, but no, I've not had too much weather trouble. I think it was a little hot, but it was nice because the side of the wall is in the shade until about this time of day, and we're kind of like in the evening right now. So, but I think that's kind of fun too, right? Like it's the bike riding element of. I mean, aside from like downpour, I think you can kind of still show up for work, but it is fun to go to a race weekend and you're going to ride the road race, whether it's sunny or rainy. So I like having that kind of physical, and traveling to Austin, just bringing it back to cycling. It's like how fun was cycling and racing, and that idea of like, this is great. Like, how do I make this my life? And then realizing like what you like of those kind of cycling racing weekends. It's like, oh, I like traveling. I like riding my bike, and then I like the idea of kind of steering into this profession of, that would be cool to get a mural in Austin, because then it kind of harkens back to like cycling. You're like, oh, well, I'm traveling, so it's an interesting art form, just from the place of like, I did try to work a career of like being able to travel and do work, and so that'll be fun to get to that point, hopefully, of being able to work and having that grid I showed you down so well that that takes you 5 days or 7 days. So I think it's a fun kind of like practice, and that grid can be, the more skilled you become at transferring, the more complex. And so Instagram's interesting for that, because you can see what other people are doing and where their standards at, and so that's a huge fun kind of like, that's the group ride of painting for me, would be like seeing somebody else's work and being like, how'd they do that? Like, and then having, creating like my own little games. So,
and figuring that out, how to create what that same feel you get looking at somebody else's work or somebody else's idea.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, you're a good puppy. Yes, you are. Yes, you are. Very good dog, actually.
She's
like,
so nice. Yeah.
Super good dog. Like, people are going by and she's just laying here. She's got her sticks. She's got a couple more now, which is awesome.
5 or 6, yeah.
I know, at least I think you know, that this is called Bike Talk with Dave, and I love the analogies back and forth that you're throwing out between your work and riding bikes. But I know you've done both for a long time. You can go to the art store tonight and pick up a couple of big white canvases, and you can put them on an easel in your studio. Do you have a studio? I would guess you have a studio.
I have a small studio, yeah.
And you can just start creating right then and there, and you've got a 40 by 40 canvas that you're painting on. Start it out white, and you get to apply whatever you want to it. Somebody calls and says, hey, I've got the side of a building, and it's diagonal, and there's a corner, and there's this triangle, and then there's a window in it, and then there's an air conditioner in front of it. Do you enjoy that piece of like, okay, how is this all gonna like fit together?
Yeah, it's so cool, yeah. And making decisions like, can I paint on top of that air conditioner, or should I just leave it? Like, I was really tempted to like incorporate it and paint on it, but it's...
That could negate a warranty or something.
Yeah,
so I'm going to say it might be a good idea to not.
But it is, but it's fun when you see artists get three-dimensional and it looks like a bookshelf at the scale of a 5-story building, and there's books and a succulent plant and a glow, so it's, I just like the idea of taking, a blank space, but you're also talking about kind of like, and if it were cycling talk, it's like that air conditioner is the pothole in the middle of the pack or something. Like, there are moments where you're just like, oh, I did not see that. And not that like, the rental machine could have hit that, and like, there's just elements of painting a mural that you're as aware as you are riding a bike at 30 miles an hour. So, but like, yeah, just moving that machine around, getting as close to an expensive air conditioning as you can get to reach something. But there is kind of this problem-solving element to it, and this kind of watching your lines and watching where your positioning is. So
Yeah, as I'm looking at it, and I need to take another picture of it because I did not incorporate this in the photos I took before you got here. But it's interesting where you start and then where you also kept going. So on the left, we've got the stoplight and then bubble maybe. These shapes and colors. And then you're into brick wall, and then the sign on the side of the building that says the depot, and it's like the rest of the building is brick building, but behind her you've got like a river flowing on the loading dock.
It's pretty water. It looks pretty liquidous and watery. Yeah.
So how do you decide the parameters of where to start and stop? Is it up to you, or do they say, we'll give you to here?
So on this project, I did ask, like, hey, I'm thinking about putting this pink circular shape here, which would be further left than I've gone, and he was like, totally fine with it, and no problem. So I definitely asked, but my brain always thinks to like I was mentioning about matching color and having that ability to like cut back, but some of the bricks I painted back to brick color, and I thought that
really?
was so fun that someday if some building is like, if just we could sell this if this building just looked brick color, and
it could be done. I'm for hire.
Yeah, I was able to, that silly thought, I was able to check. Yeah,
I can kind of see to the left of the stoplight. Yeah. That's awesome.
And up top there on the left. But it's kind of fun, a couple shades of red make brick, not just one shade of red.
Oh, sure. No, I get that 100%. And a little black and maybe a little gray. Somebody gave me, how you can texture concrete when you pour it?
Yes.
And this inside of a building going down to their basement, which was used a lot in an office building kind of thing, was brick shaped, and he hated it because it was concrete color. He's like, can you make this look like brick?
Was it the most fun you've had painting ever?
It was super fun. I couldn't mess up, that's for sure.
I know, yeah. And also it's like you're deciding what brick is, which is like,
right. What color brick is this? Where was this fired? What kind of clay was it?
That's fun.
Yeah.
Was it were you matching brick around it, or
nope, it was I had free reign to make it look like brick. Yeah, it was nice. It was, I don't know that it was easy. It was a bunch of different passes over it.
Yeah.
But it turned out cool. So kind of fun that you made brick look like brick.
Can I go see that if I want to see that? Is that?
I don't know the owner anymore. Maybe I'll tell you what it is when we're off. Yeah, for sure. Dream, like if you said
can't believe this.
Yeah, if I got to do this, what would this be?
Locally, one that comes to mind is like the Marriott. Seems like a huge blank canvas where it's like, that could be any, that could be, I love the idea of scale, and especially, and that seems, crit racing's dangerous, but this is kind of fun and dangerous too. And just imagining like, what is that, 20 stories? So
yeah, we before we started recording, we were talking, and you mentioned rock climbing. Would hanging off the side of the building like freak you out at all?
We don't have mountains around here, so it's like, it is kind of that like adventure of, I think it would be adventurous, yeah. as adventurous as living in Colorado and saying, let's go climb this. And probably would have a crew that day and be strapped in or something, but that sort of a thing, like scale-wise, I think that's a dream project, is like how big. Other dream projects are just knowing my schedule for a year out, like that sort of dream pipeline too, where so, and then everything in between that would just be maybe a little less cold calling, like those types of dreams. And yeah, so
People call you. That would be be fun.
That would be nice.
Yeah.
And it just takes. Yeah.
Jacob your website's Jacob, right?
Yeah.
JacobKuperman.com. You're ready to go to Austin. I do have listeners in Austin. I have listeners in Europe,
Tell me about your
China,
podcast,
whatever. Yeah, for sure. So
I didn't mean to make
hey,
it
wherever.
sound about not having customers. No, I think that sort of thing where it's like operable, right?
Uh-huh.
Operational to the system, down to your systems. But you work for yourself too and understand kind of like.
You love getting a phone call.
Yeah.
Side of a bus, side of a van. Would you be excited about something like that?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
About a bike.
I think so too, but then it becomes kind of like, using like a spray gun, like a professional. So there's projects that I'm like, I don't know that as well as a professional paints a bike. So there would be that conversation, I think.
Well, I'm not talking about like a beautiful Jeffrey Bach paint job.
Okay.
I'm talking about a Jake Kuperman.
I would apply my art to any.
Would you?
Yeah.
That might be kind of fun.
Yeah.
Go down to the collective, find an old frame, and
I've worked with the Street Collective. I took 5 frames they donated, and I hung those in my studio, and then I kind of created gradients and threw some paint at it, and I did that for an art show called The Move. I think it was The Move 5. There have been a few of them, and they're sequentially numbered, but so we raffled the bike frames off, but that was fun. Yeah, I created a gradient and used the colors of the flyer for the event, so kind of tied the theme in.
not this week, but in my last podcast with who's been everywhere in this year land?
2 cross ones in the last couple weeks, right?
Yeah, boy, oh boy.
You remember?
I'm editing this
cross?
out.
Yeah.
Who did I just do? Because I did Gravel Worlds. Must have been before that. And cyclocross was this week. And geez, that's horrible.
I like the answer for why do you like cyclocross, where it's like road season's over, where it's like it's just the next thing, like
it's what you do. Yeah, road season's over. Oh, all right. Time to get on your
what
cross
a silly
bike.
question, Dave.
Right. Duh. So I feel like your theme is, and I'm going to sing this, is I'll paint. Nah, that's not good. I'll paint anything in this here land. That wasn't very good, but it was an attempt.
Anything to throw paint at. No, I'm having fun with it. I think what I want to do and paint and stuff, it just, I don't know, visually, it's like, so much about the customer seeing it, and so I don't know where I'm going with that, but
I suppose it would depend on the customer. Did these guys have input into what the design was going to be?
When I asked for what input do you want to throw in, there was so much left up to me, but then ultimately they looked at the mock-up and like said that looks awesome. Like go ahead.
Well, that's easy.
Right. But there could have been I made a couple designs, and I could have shown one where I could see the feedback being like, what else do you have? So I definitely explored, and I created maybe 3 or 5 ideas. And
do you have a good conversation with them over a cup of coffee or a beer about what they're envisioning and what they're kind of hoping, what their objective
every
would
answer
be?
every answer to those questions were just kind of a defer to what I wanted. So this was a nice project for.
Yeah, this sounds like the easy button.
This was a fun project, yeah.
Yeah.
And captured and well lit, and plenty of space to take that reference photo. And
Well, I think it's awesome. I love it. I love the art that goes up around town. And really, I think it's not uncommon around the country. Good art, especially in a well-trafficked, not just on a bridge abutment.
Yeah, or just a canvas inside or something. So I think
right.
So many blank walls, and I think it builds. It's like a geo-marker, it's like meet me at that mural, or it can build community. It can create change by saying, I've never wanted to ride a bike until I saw a mural that made biking look fun, or so, so I don't know, there's something to it being a storytelling the way that the podcast is, or the magazine is, but yeah, momentum, so it, AJ comes to mind with momentum, where it's like he probably put on his resume that he wrote for Momentum, and then that led to, so yeah, I don't know how that translates to painting, but there is something where you created momentum for AJ to keep writing and take his writing a little more seriously or something. We all have those little, whether it's photography or writing, or so just stoking that hobby. And
the storytelling, regardless of the medium, again.
Totally.
Verbal, written, rattle can, photographs, whatever. Yeah. It all is a form of storytelling, which I think is cool. I think that's kind of what defines my kind of run through life, is different ways to tell stories, which I think is cool.
I think it's cool you do it, yeah.
Yeah, it's fun. All right, dude, and Instagram is...
That's probably that's where I put my most of my energy, yeah.
And what is it? It's not just Jake Kuperman, is it?
It's Kuperman Draws. Kuperman.draws.
And Kuperman, Kuperman. You impressed I know how to spell that?
I am.
Good, because I can also read.
It's only 20 yards away.
It is, and you wrote it really big so we can see it. Yeah, for sure. I love it.
I had fun chatting with you. Thanks for seeing the connection between us biking and storytelling, and
I love it. All right, well, thanks tons for being on and meeting me down at your work of art.
Thank you so much.
And come down to see it. It's below Southwest 9th and the bike trail, Thomas Beck Road, and what's that road that goes right there by by McRae Park? We're right by McRae Park.
Right by the lookout, yep.
That pointy thing points right at your work of art. If you come down here, you'll know what we're talking about. Just look upright when you're looking at the work of art. But anyway,
thanks for having me. Yeah, appreciate it.
Great job, dude.
Thank you.
It was so cool to talk to Jake about his cycling-inspired creations, and it's even more cool that his art is out there along the trail for all to enjoy, and for each of us to let our own story of that mural be created in our own minds. I love it, and I love seeing the art pop up, and not just here, but everywhere we go. Bentonville, Austin, Boulder, Madison, Twin Cities, wherever. Like, the art is all over, and it's great. And when you're in Des Moines, definitely check out Jake's art under the Southwest 9th Bridge. Be sure to hunt him down on Instagram at Kuperman Draws or on the web at jacobkuperman.com. Maybe you can pick up a can of empty spray paint. I want to say thank you to Jake for taking the time to talk with me and share his story with us. Speaking of sharing his story, the story of the Core 4 continues in 2024. Check it out. Who's ready for some Core 4 news? After a huge spike in riders and a super thank you to everyone for coming out this year, these guys jumped right back into the fire. It's no surface untouched again for 2024 because Core 424 has a sweet sound to it, no doubt. New routes, new distances, and a new you. That's right, y'all, they are mixing it up with more surprises and delights. New for 24 is the Core 40 distance. Just a bump up from the 20 mile and still has all the farmscapes and B roads and champagne gravel you'd expect from the folks at Core 4, just without the single track. They're telling us 60 is the new 50, miles that is. It's a no-surfaced, untouched, podium-eligible route with all the cats in addition to their marquee 100-mile event. It's the perfect blend of competition and community. We want Core 4 to be on your event calendar for 2024. Jump on Bike Reg today and get in on the Core 4 family rate, a 24% discount before October 2nd. Snag your spot before this event reaches its cap. Come ride the wave and get more bodies on bikes. It's blazing hot action every year, and they'll keep the fire stoked all winter long with the 20, 40, 60, or 100-mile route. Core 424 has something for everyone. It's time for the next time. Let's go! Now, I'd like to thank you for tuning in today. If you enjoyed today's show, I would love it if you would rate and review on your favorite podcast platform and give us a follow on Instagram and Facebook. And now we're on YouTube too. If you really love the show and you want to be part of its continued growth, feel free to support it financially. Just look for Bike Talk with Dave at buymeacoffee.com. When you do, I would love to send you a sticker. And finally, be sure and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss an episode. We've got some awesome episodes coming up. Emily Newsom is next week to talk about women's racing and a whole bunch of other things. Plus, Pete Stetna, the privateer pioneer, and later this fall, Hall of Fame mountain biker Dave Weens. Like I said, you don't want to miss a thing. So I hope you have a great week. Come back next week, and remember that nothing compares to the simple pleasure of riding a bicycle.